Hello! Today we're going to continue working with Ye Shen, a Cinderella story from China, retold by Eileen Louie and illustrated by Ed Young. Today, this group is going to start off by doing a picture sort activity, and then you are going to retell the story of Ye Shen in a circle with your peers. And then, with a partner from your group, you're going to be using worksheets to summarize the beginning, middle, and end of the story, including a sentence about the moral of the story. So to start with, we're going to be sorting images, like these ones on the computer here, into a logical sequence from the story. So for example, I'm going to give you the first one. We have this one of the baby right here. So the first thing that happened in the story was that Ye Shen was born to her mother and father. So the baby would be the first thing that happened in the story. So next you need to pick the images that come second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So I'll be back in a few minutes once you have finished sorting your pictures. Alright, so hopefully your group helped out and made sure that all your images are in the correct order. Hopefully you check the book to make sure that you are correct. So now, as a group, you're going to move yourselves together into a big old circle, and you need to find out whose name comes first in the alphabet. After you found out whose name comes first in the alphabet, that person is going to be getting a ball like this one, or maybe even a big fun one like this one, and you're going to be passing the ball to the left every single time that you say a sentence from the story. So for example, if it were to start with Alex, Alex would start the story by saying, Ye Shen was born in a cave home, and then her mother and father passed away shortly after. After Alex said that first line of the story, Alex would pass the ball to the next person in line, and then that person would say the next sentence in the story until the whole story is finished. So do your best to remember all the important facts from the story. Try not to miss any of the important details. So I will come back once you guys have told the whole story. Make sure someone raises their hand and come gets me once you finish the story. Alright, you guys did a really good job. So next, I'd like you all to partner up. So break off from your circle and partner up with someone else in the group. If there's anyone left over, you can make a group of 3. And you're going to be filling out this summary worksheet. So remember to put your name and the date and work together with your partner. And you're going to write 2 sentences at least about what happened in the beginning of the story, 2 sentences from the middle of the story, and 2 sentences from the end of the story. And in your end box, I would like you to include the moral of the story, which means the lesson or what the story is trying to teach you. So go ahead, work with your partners, make sure you're thinking about your spelling, your capitalization, and your punctuation while you're writing. You may use dictionaries, you may use Google, and whatever else you need to be able to write your sentences. So I chose these activities for my ESL students for a lot of reasons, honestly. So first off, I'll start with standard, actually. We have the rubric down here with our standards. So our main standard, as it has been for the rest of the activities, is to recount stories, including fables and folktales from diverse cultures, and determine their central message, lesson, or moral. All 3 of the activities I chose for my ESL students do have them in some way, shape, or form recounting the story and including the moral. So the picture sorting activity has them basically telling the story through images. The second one has them actually telling the story from start to finish, 1 sentence at a time. And the third activity has them summarizing the story, so getting just the basic highlights and overarching events of the story and kind of compressing it into a shorter explanation. And that last activity also includes them saying the moral, so that meets that entire standard. It also meets the second standard describing the overall structure of a story. That one is from the worksheet right here where they have the beginning, the middle, and the end, and also the moral of the story. And the last one, demonstrate command of the conventions of standard English capitalization, punctuation, and spelling when writing. I included that one because I think it's very important to make sure your ESL students are not getting ingrained in simple mistakes in the writing. It is very easy for them to fall into a habit of like bad mistakes in their writing, really easy. So it's tempting to let them off the hook and focus on their sentence length, but I think it's good to still also focus on correct grammar in the writing. So in particular, I think these centers are good for my ESL students for the reason that they use a lot of senses and different learning styles. So for example, from the senses, this uses touch when they are touching the ball and they're sorting the pictures by moving them around the table. It uses sight because they are looking at the pictures and they are looking at what they are writing later in the activities. They are listening to the other students around them, help them retell the story. They are speaking by telling their part of the story and also later by working with their partner to write summaries. And they are writing. They are using their own hand. They are taking their own hand across the paper and they are writing down summaries. So this gives them a lot of different ways in order to finish this assignment. Also, cooperation definitely aids in effective strategy use. For example, one student might have a certain strategy they use and the other one might have a different strategy. Different strategies are better for different situations, so these students can come together, mix and match their strategies, and they can learn the most effective strategies to use for different activities. Also, doing the same thing in multiple ways, like I said, they're basically retelling or recounting the story 3 times in a row, but doing it in very different ways each time. This helps them with their retention, and it definitely helps remembrance of information. It's not just doing the same thing over and over and over, but it is practicing and reviewing the same concept multiple times through different activities, which can definitely help ingrain it into their heads. So some of the sources I used to come up with these activities, I used page 401 of our textbook, which is The Joy of Children's Literature, 2nd edition. Page 401 went over shared writing, which I did have in one of my previous videos. So, sorry. Shared writing does benefit all students and it helps get their words onto the paper, and it may include some writing in the native language and can be used to reread later, which is what makes it good for ELL students. I also use this article, which is about engaging ESL students in the classroom. And I used this second example right here, oral storytelling, to come up with my second activity in my center. So this is good for the students because it forces them to listen closely and be able to follow along with the story at the same time that they have to include their own sentences in that story. So it involves listening, it involves speaking, and being able to follow along with people who are talking at kind of a natural pace. So this is my rubric for these activities. I have 4 different categories that are worth 20 points each for a total of up to 80 points. The organization is for the sorting, participation is for all 3 activities, grammar is mostly for the summary activity, and completeness is also for the summary. I'm so sorry. Okay, so students needed to sort the images correctly. This is in order to meet the first standard. Participation is also there in order to meet the first standard because the students, there needs to be a certain amount of accountability to know that they are actually trying to recount the stories and retell the stories appropriately. The grammar and completeness is because we do need to still hold ESL students to high standards when it comes to the amounts of writing that they can produce and the quality of writing that they can produce.